Awesome. I'm gonna preach today as planned, and we're doing the next ethic, which is number 7. We have 3 more. Number 9 is one you definitely shouldn't miss. It's going to be a very interesting Sunday. If you don't know what number 9 is, look it up. All right, it's going to be a good one. It has to do with the S word. Okay, you'll figure that out later. It's going to be a good one. But we have been going down this road of trying to expand and rearrange our priorities publicly. That's what this basically is. We want to take some things that have traditionally been deprioritized in the church or in faith and reprioritize them. And almost every one of these has at least one of 2 things in common. Either it is with the intention of really glorifying and displaying who God really is to humanity, or it is learning to treat one another the way we've been called to treat one another. And so this is about building a strong faith community where people are valued and honored for where they're at and what their journey looks like, and also continuing to pour out our own hearts and minds to ask God, what else do we need to understand? What more do you have for us? What other questions can we ask? What other kind of understanding or wisdom can we grasp? And so today's is no different. Number 7 we can put up there to start out here together. And number 7 is this: we prioritize meeting actual needs. Actual needs is more important than maintaining institutions. This seems like a no-brainer, but unfortunately, I'll say this. In the church institutions out there that are actively addressing the needs of their community or the people in their congregations, very few of them have that prioritized over maintaining the institution. And so when it comes down to the 2, it oftentimes seems like they will pick maintaining the institution because it's for the greater good, and we've got to keep things going and rolling, and we can't take a blow to our momentum and growth, or there can't be rumors swirling in the community. So we've developed, if you will, in the evangelical world this mentality of convincing ourselves that by doing what we think is for the greater good, we can sacrifice a couple lambs along the way. And I know this church is full of a couple of those lambs that have been sacrificed along the way. And I understand and feel, as I've heard some of your stories, the immense pain that it's caused. And so this is one of the reasons we address this today. Pretty straightforward. So one of the translations of this is the idea that too much focus on the church gets in the way of God's mission. And if our mission is to build the church, we're missing, that's not a mission. If our mission is to build the institution of the church, the glory and grandeur of the church, we are missing it. Jesus never stayed in one place long enough to really build anything. And so we, in the last 20 years especially, have gotten this kingdom theology that's come out, and there's some good parts of it, and I don't have time to go into that. I'm not knocking the whole thing. But this kingdom theology has been about simply building the kingdom. And what I oftentimes realize is that it's pitched that in building the kingdom, we're focusing on the kingdom of heaven, but we're also focusing on the kingdom that God's asked us to establish on earth. But what I've realized over the year that the majority of the people that are peddling this theology spend 99% of their time building the kingdom here on earth. And the kingdom here on earth, and done in the name of that theology, oftentimes is only sustained by maintaining the institution, protecting the institution. You say, how do you know this? Because I've seen it, I've been there, I've watched it. We've lived our lives seeing and watching great people of faith, great leaders in the faith, be faced with tough decisions and many, many times pick the institution over the person, over meeting actual needs. I am proud to say that we have a tradition here at Harvest that we're still trying to figure out as we go along, but we have a tradition since 1990 was when we opened our first food bank to meet the needs of our community. I don't know how many pounds of food in the last number of years, 31 years that we've given, 33 years that we've given away, but it would be in the probably somewhere between $15 and $20 million worth of food we've given away in the last 33 years. We came to Sarasota, I was 4, 1985, and my mom and dad established this church, and it was just simply, every time I say something, you guys are snickering down here. What's going on? But the church was established in 85. All right, well, I was there, but I wasn't all there. You know what I mean? I was still in diapers or something. I couldn't even, never mind. Couldn't even go to the bathroom without assistance, and you want me to, it's a tough crowd. All right, anyways. That's how we start our life, and that's how we end our life, right, church? All right? You know what I'm talking about. In 1984, everyone say 4 with me, not 5, 4. That was a hard year, apparently, because we can't skip over it. In 1984, my parents established this church, so I was, count it back, 3, and it was just a church. My mom and dad had a heart for outreach, but it was just, looked like every other church, and we received a word from God through a man who came through a town in 1985, right? And simply he said, and maybe soon we'll read it to you because it's always good to refresh it, but simply said, God's not called you to be your average, normal, safe, church, paraphrasing it. He said, God's called you to the marginalized, to the people in the community that the church has often shut out. And that meant back then meeting the needs of people through food, which many of the churches in our area, most of them, weren't doing yet. Harvest was one of the first ones to do it, maybe other than the Catholic Church at the time. And we started doing it that way. And 2 years later, to give you a little bit of history, 2 years later in 92, that was 1990, 92, we realized that a lot of the people that were coming to us for food were in that position because they were struggling with some life-altering substance abuse issues. And so my parents mortgaged their house with 5 kids and no money in the bank because the church couldn't get a loan, and they took the equity from their home and they bought a extremely dilapidated property on, I think it was Royal Palm was the first one, right? On Royal Palm off of North 41, and it was a mess. And we collectively as a church put our resources together. We were small at the time, and my mom and dad, through just blood, sweat, and tears, and some help from some folks in the church, remodeled that place and put our first resident in it, who's Jim McLeod, which I don't know if Jim is here today, and who was just spent 20 years struggling, or 15 years struggling with a crack cocaine addiction. And he came into the program as the first resident of Harvest House in 1992. Jim McLeod today runs his own affordable healthcare facility called Genesis Health, where people can come from the community and receive dental and medical care. He has a couple of offices in the surrounding area and has been sober and clean, I guess, now for 30 years, or close to 30 years. Today, now I'm really gonna mess it up. Today, Harvest House has grown to 10 supportive campuses. We have a staff of 30. We have a total of 380 beds. We started with 6, 380 beds, and we're considered the largest provider of housing and services of any nonprofit in the area to those that are in need. So we have 3 major programs. One of them is for addiction, people that are struggling with addiction or incarceration, that are coming out of jail or have some addiction issues, called the Freedom Program. And John Lopez right here runs that program. You can wave everyone, John. We have a program called Home Again, which is for homeless families, mostly mothers with children. And we have a third program called New Heights, which is for unaccompanied youth that are aging out of the foster care system, which a high percentage of them are LGBTQ. And the minute their parents aren't getting a foster care check anymore, they get kicked out to the streets, have no way to make enough income to live in Sarasota, and they're couch surfing or in their car or sleeping under a bridge. And they come to us, they get a free place to stay, they've got food, they've got counseling, they've got their own little setup. We get them in school to get a degree, or we get them working. And it all started from the very beginning, and the very beginning was just simply this: what does the community or the people around us need? You don't start a program like that with that kind of financial responsibility when the church, the institution itself, couldn't even afford a mortgage on the first property. That doesn't make sense. But when you prioritize people's needs over maintaining an institution, you will do some stuff that doesn't make the greatest sense. But when you're talking about investing into the hearts and minds and the lives of humanity around us, that's the greatest investment we can make. I'm gonna get to some scripture, I promise you, but I wanna set this up for you. We have not just, Harvest House is now about 80% of our entire nonprofit's budget, and if you didn't know that existed, we understand, but that's what we've got going on 80% of our nonprofit. The church is only 20% of our budget, or 23% or something like that, and Harvest House is the rest. And in addition to that, and expanding in every way we possibly can, we have also in the last 6 years especially, but 9 years, or 7 years, going back to 2016, we have decided to make another poor institutional decision. We have a long history of making poor institutional decisions. Business decisions, maintaining the institution. And that was, we let half of you in. And we didn't just let you in, we didn't just tolerate you, we celebrated you, we welcomed you, we told you what we believe, and that is you have right standing with God, whether you are black, white, poor, rich, gay, straight, you are welcome in the house of God, and you will be treated exactly for what you are, and that is a sibling in Christ. So when I speak on harvest ethic number 7, I'm not saying what I hope to be. I'm saying this is what we have been, we are, and we will be, and we will continue to find a way to prioritize the people's needs around us, the community's needs, humanity's needs, over maintaining the institution. Do you hear me, church? Now, that being said, and if you're watching online, you're saying, one day I want to visit that church, this is for you too. That being said, this will never be a comfortable church. Not comfortable as in like safe, I belong, I know I'm loved here. It'll be comfortable that way. But this will never be a predictable church. This will never be a church where you know what's getting ready to happen, because we spend a lot less time on programming the institution and a lot more time on looking out at what we can see and do and how we can engage our community of believers here and the outside world in a way that's effective to actually bringing people to the feet of Jesus, who's been waiting for them for their entire life to come to the knowledge that they were created in his image, beautiful and accepted just the way they are. Come on. So yeah, I will. I'll do that. I'm getting texts from the front row. Thank you. Usually it's zip up your zipper, but it's not that today. I do that about once every 4 Sundays. If you're paying attention, I'm pretty good at it. Everybody bow your heads. That's what we do. I don't know why. I think they buy me trick jeans or something, okay? That's inappropriate. All right, well, you're just getting started here. Wait till we get to ethic number 9. Galatians 5:13, let's put that up there together. Hey, Sam, thank you for filling in on audio this week. It sounded great. Thank you, buddy. Awesome. That's KK's husband. Hashtag KK's slave. Hashtag, I'm just kidding. It's fine. He likes it. All right. Galatians 5:13, you, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. Let me give you another version of this that I really like. Your redeemed identity defines your freedom, my friends. But freedom does not mean that you are now free to again employ the law. On the contrary, your freedom finds its most complete expression in a love that serves one another. As free as you are to the law, so enslaved you are now to love. Don't you love that idea? You are at least free to live the life of your original design. I like this because where it says that we are most complete, it's the word itole, and it simply means that. It means complete. It means the destination. It means the finish line. And what I'm finding out in the New Testament is that word is used a lot. And it's used oftentimes in conjunction with, and we'll see it in another scripture coming up, with the word command or commandment. So a lot of times when Jesus said, I give you this command, he's actually saying, I give you this itole. It's entole, E-N-T-O-L-E, entole. And that Greek word, when he says, I give you this command, he's actually saying, I'm giving you something that will complete, that will finish. In other words, if you want to reach the completeness, the fullness of your potential here on the earth, those commandments will get you there. One of them we find in, see here, go to John 15 for me, Roland. It's down a little bit, and we'll go back. That says here, it says, my command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. This is interesting because he literally says, if you want to live a complete, I think a lot of the terms we use nowadays is we want to be whole. If we want to live the wholeness of our purpose, if we want to live that kind of life, you can't get around this part. And that is loving one another, loving our community, giving, looking out for one another, putting aside our own inherent biases in the way that we think the world should run, and accepting people that are a little different than we are. Getting rid of our own attitudes, what we're comfortable with. And if we learn to do that, then we have that, we fulfill that entole, that completeness in our life. The mirror of John 15, 12 through 13 says, I advise you to discover your love for one another, mirrored in my love for you. This is the conclusion of my mission. That's another way to put entole. It is a conclusion of a missional thing that God's given us. Are you hearing that today, church? There's no greater expression of love than the love that leads someone to lay down his life for his friends. One of the quotes that I pulled was self-sacrifice is the high water mark of love. Now, I'm gonna stop there because I wanna talk for a moment about self-sacrifice, and this is how I'm gonna tie this all together for you. I thought today I would spend a lot of time explaining to you how screwed up the institution of the church is. But you have to know your audience. So I'm gonna condense what would have been 10 minutes into 2 minutes, all right? The largest denomination in the United States, which I'm not going to name today, but you can look it up, had an entire, finally after years of being asked, started to investigate some accusations of SA with leaders and pastors and minors, abuse. And they very quickly came to the conclusion that it was rampant in their denomination and that it was oftentimes being swept under the rug, and the pastors or the youth pastors or the staff members that were doing it would leave that church and then show up somewhere else at another church connected to the denomination, and after a while they would be hired in and continue the madness. That resulted in, and of course there is no way to track down everything, that resulted in, and I want to quote it exactly here, it resulted in 380 people being accused, mostly pastors, and 250 of them were criminally charged in one denomination. The Catholic Church right now has on their books as of 2022, 4,200 ministry leaders, priests and other workers, 4,200 that they're investigating or dealing with. That's just the Catholic Church in one denomination of evangelical world, and that's what's been reported. Why don't you hear this? Because we're more concerned with maintaining the institution than we are meeting the needs of people and protecting them. I'm gonna be very careful because that's why I'm not saying the actual things. I don't want to upset anyone. They don't deserve to be re-traumatized. I will say this to you. We are watching the evangelical church launch a culture war against other groups in our community and our nation and accuse them of being pedophiles, when the greatest rate of pedophilia is coming from within the Christian institution. You are more likely to get your child to have that kind of encounter with their youth pastor than they are with a drag queen. Do you hear me, church? You can have your opinions on that. It's fact. Go ahead and Google, when you get home, if you can handle it, SA amongst pastors. And you know what statistics you're gonna find? None. I dug and I dug and I dug and I dug, and even the report from the largest denomination had to be leaked to the Houston Chronicle, or they had to petition for it, or I don't know exactly how they got a hold of it. It wasn't even released by the denomination. The Houston Chronicle got a hold of it and reported on it in Texas, and then put out there the numbers, which were staggering, because even after they committed to being responsible for what was going on and to be accountable for what they had let go on too far, they still refused to release the report so they could be held accountable going forward of how bad it was. They just said, we have some problems and we're gonna fix them. For what? I mean, I'm gonna get mad in a moment. For what? So we don't have to sell the church? Who cares? Because maybe we'll have to let some people go and they're gonna have to go work. Who cares? They'd probably be better off. What are we protecting? Not the kids and not their families. And then we've gaslit and we've done all of the things that are so opposite of Jesus. And I'm gonna say it to you, it's demonic what we've allowed to happen in our churches. Meanwhile, we are shining the spotlight on everybody else but ourselves. And we've got to fix the problem that we are more concerned with maintaining the institution, both religiously and politically, before we start pointing fingers at anybody else. You know why? Because I know we don't have time for applause. People are dying. They have that kind of encounter with the pastor, gets swept under the rug, they get victim shamed and all of the things, right? And then they leave the church and all the other kids and the teenagers in the youth group are talking about them, and they're kicked out of their community. They lose their friends, their church, their mentors in one thing. And then 4 years down the road, they take their mother's pills in the bathroom, and a week later they're burying the child or the teenager, and it never gets linked back to the church. But I'm telling you, there's blood on our hands because we're more concerned with our buildings and our salaries and our stipends pensions and our housing allowances than we are with the hearts and minds of our own kids.
Amen. Yes, that's true.
Do you hear me, church? So we've got to do what we are expecting people who don't even claim to have faith to do. We're expecting people out there that say, I don't want anything to do with God, to act better than we're acting. And that's going to take a church that says, you know what? If the institution crumbles, but we do the right thing by people. There's many times in the last couple years, I went to bed at night thinking to myself, I don't know if Harvest is going to make it. We took a 70% income hit and a 70% number of people attending hit when we made some decisions that were about people and not an institution. But if doing the right thing by God's beautiful creation means the church crumbles, which thank God it's not, because you all are growing this thing like crazy. But if that's what happens, then we go to bed the next night and we know we've done the right thing, because people are more important than a church. People are more important than a pastoral team. People are more important than authority or money or bank accounts or buildings. And I don't think it's a coincidence, and largely in due part, mostly in due part to Erin and her amazing team at Harvest House, that we made those decisions, which were horrible financial decisions, to go forward, and you are sitting in a $3 million building that is paid off. Try to make that match up. So this crazy team here and this crazy group of people just goes, we're going to do the right thing. Do we always do the right thing? No, but gosh darn it, we try. We're going to do the right thing as many times as we can, as much as we can. Keep doing the right thing by people, not by the institution, by people. And if that doesn't work out, then this isn't what church is supposed to look like. We'll gather in one another's homes. We'll hang out at Applebee's, not Applebee's because that place is gross, but we're going to... listen, don't even go there, all right? You think Cracker Barrel has a Michelin star, so be quiet. Those stars on the waitresses, that's how long they've been working there. Those aren't Michelin stars, okay? Jesus. My God. Oh, man. Yeah. So we realize that the solution to this is we've got to maintain an attitude where we are willing to sacrifice to love one another well. And I thought I could end there, but then this little birdie in the back of my head, this little evil little birdie said, hey, but sometimes people's willingness to self-sacrifice also gets taken advantage of in the church. Anyone been there? Yeah. It's weird because I can spot y'all. I know those of you that will do anything I ask you to do around here, and you will spend you'll call into work sick to come here. And you know what? I don't talk to you at all. I talk to you a little bit, but I ask you to do nothing. You know why? Because sometimes being self-sacrificial becomes, you can put the next slide on the screen for me, isn't just self-sacrifice anymore. It actually becomes pathological altruism. Simply meaning that we begin to self-sacrifice so much in the name of love that we begin to ignore our own needs. And we're no longer actually being healthy towards ourselves. And this is considered holy. It also is a recipe for a really messed up group of people. I've seen it. And they are you know what crazy. because everyone's trying to outgive to one another. If you've seen this happen, I can't even explain to you. It's like somebody's spouse goes into the hospital, right? Which is like, okay, we need to make sure they're good, right? And the one person signs up for like 7 dinners in a row, right? And then shows up an hour early and offers to serve it to them, on their grandmother's silver that they just polished that morning. And then you darn well know they're gonna do a Facebook post about it, right? That kind of, and I thought, well, I'm gonna read this to you because I'm not an expert in this area, so I looked some good information up. But people who have self-sacrifice, what they'll say, schema, are constantly busy and preoccupied with others, so they live under constant stress. As a result, they tend to struggle with anxiety, depression, feelings of resentment, and burnout. Chronic self-sacrifice ends up becoming an extreme form of altruism. Therefore, although self-sacrifice is perceived positively by society, when it becomes dysfunctional or disruptive, it's not good for you. And actually what happens is we don't actually end up helping and contributing to the community anymore because we become so unhealthy personally that everything we touch is toxic because our motives are outside of what they should be. It's the same idea when we give in church. If you're giving in church because you're like, God's gonna be ticked at me and my car's not going to run another week, it's unhealthy to think that a God who loves you that much is like up there in heaven, like, I'm gonna throw this transmission. Let me see, 50, nope. And then boom, Monday morning, transmission goes. It's not. It's the same idea when we give to one another. So I decided, and because I think you guys have the point of this ethic, that we're gonna do a little exercise today. And if you answer yes to any of the following questions, you might be allowing self-sacrifice to become pathological altruism. You ready? Do not raise your hand. Raise your hand on the inside. It looks like this. Okay? Everyone do that with me. Only I can see you. It's good. I know who you are. It's fine. You ready? Put them up there. Do you feel selfish or guilty when you prioritize your needs and desires over others? Do you claim responsibility for other people's behavior? That's directed at somebody in particular. I wrote these. I was gonna put your initials by it, just like. Do you feel a great emotional void? Do you lack the time, energy, and resources to take care of yourself because you're depleting them on others? Now hold on, pause it there. We've got some more. You're welcome. Now, I'm not talking about the people that are like, self-care, and their kid's like screaming their head off and hasn't had their diaper changed in 4 days, okay? I'm just doing self-care. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're a self-care person, like, you gotta like, you know what I mean? Everyone say self-care. All right, the next 4, or 3, because I cut one out because I didn't like it. Do you believe your self-sacrifice is more of an obligation and not a voluntary action? In other words, I have to do this. It's the same way when we give. I have to give. Bad things are gonna happen. I have to. Versus, this is something I'd like to do, I'd wanna do. I'm actually doing this out of the abundance of what I have already stored up here. Do the people around you seem entitled to your self-sacrifice or sacrificial tendencies? Apparently I didn't pass grammar. Do people feel entitled to it? And when you don't give in that way, ignoring yourself to other people, do you feel like you've let them down? Last one, do you say yes to everything even when the appropriate answer is no? See, if we're going to live harvest ethic number 7, it's easy just to say, everybody just needs to love each other sacrificially. But I've seen that go so sideways that if we're going to do that, we've got to do it in a healthy way, which means sometimes you're going to have a no. You know what? And if you say yes to everything, you've said no to everything. In order to have a yes, you have to have a no. Think about this. Jesus passing through the crowd. He's been called out and asked because somebody's child is dead. And he's in the middle of preaching or teaching, right? And everywhere he goes, people have this idea of him. They know that he's a healer. And so people come and they've got needs. And it's my neck and my back and my arm. And I've got internal bleeding. And I've got this happening and that happening. And all these people are there and they want a miracle. And Jesus gets called away because somebody's child is dead. So what does he have to do on the way out? What does he have to do for that child to get a yes? He's got to go, no, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. And this is actually really loving that one really well. You know why? Because when I have to say yes to everybody, it's not about them, it's about me. Because I feel like a hero. And everybody comes to me and they need everything. And look at me, I can just do this. But you can't actually ever get to the one that you were intending to get to because we're worried about stroking our own feelings of being a hero and altruistic. And so we've got to say no. No is just as spiritual as yes. Do you hear me? Sometimes for some of us, it's more spiritual. Amen. Do you hear me today? I'm going to take it a step further. Ooh. No also includes your bodies. You have personal autonomy over your body. Nobody else has rights over your body. So in order to have a yes in intimacy with somebody, you have to have the ability to say no. Yep. Do you hear me today? That's going to be a discussion point for some of you when you get home. No, 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 no. Jesus, the most loving, caring, whoa, he just changed the world. No, no. What if you're the one that gets a no here? You showed up to the meeting. How do we paint that in Christianity? Oh, can't believe he's told me, I traveled all the way for 2 days to get to this meeting, and he said no. It's because he committed to going and raising from the dead that child all the way over there. And he had to have a no in order to have a yes. And if Jesus had to do it, we have to do it too. So learn to say no. And if the people around you think that by you saying no to something means you don't love them, they need the therapy. Do you hear me today? Do you hear me? If I go to my mom today and say, Mom, everything you got in the bank account, any investments you have, sell them and give them to me. I'm your favorite child. And she says no. And then I come back to you. Well, I am her favorite child. I'm her favorite third child, all right? Maybe fourth. But if I do that, right, and she says no to me, and then I come to your house afterwards and I'm like, she doesn't love me. My own mother doesn't love me. You're like, let's talk this through. What happened? She said no to me. What'd you ask her? Well, just ask her to give me everything she has. We have to have no's. No's are important. You know why? If she said yes to me, then the rest of the brats in my family would not get an inheritance. That's number one. Number two, she couldn't live. And in Christianity, we see those expressions as the most godly, beautiful thing. Look at her, she's barely surviving off of anything because she just wanted to give to her children. She's so holy. No, she's unhealthy. Not her, but the idea of her. She's unhealthy because she would rather mess herself over and make her life just completely almost unlivable when somebody else is doing just fine, rather than say no. Because we've made being a constant yes something that's like greatly revered and honored by God. Hey, your job next week is to fill this, okay? Can you do that? No? All right. How about those two things? There you go. Let's try it over here. Mom, is that your favorite child? No. Okay. That's a demon. We're going to do that on next week. That's number 8. All right, we're going to end with this. So I want to encourage you to just find, if any of those things rung a bell for you, you're not bad. There's a lot of us here. We just need to learn the importance of, why am I giving of myself in this moment? Am I having to deny myself something that is fine? Or am I denying myself in such a way that I'm being unkind to me? Like, some of us can't pay our light bill at the end of the month, but we can't tell our kids no, even though they have like 1,400 plushies and they want 1,401. It means doesn't mean you don't love them. It means we're gonna have lights at the end of this month. It's just learning to just have that in our lives. So put the very first slide up for me, and we're gonna stand to our feet together. Did you all enjoy 4 a.m. Dan Minor? Did you enjoy that? Some of you are like, I get up at 4 a.m. every day. I don't. When I have to get up at 6 a.m. to take my kids to school, I feel like the world's falling apart. And the reason I do that is because oftentimes God's people who need me in their hour of need, it happens late at night, and I want to be alert for them. So I have shifted my priorities in my life to be a little bit more of a night owl, so I can be available to God's people when they call me and need me to help them. Does that make sense? Is that better? All right. You're welcome. Meeting actual needs is more important than maintaining institutions. We are going to not just, we've lived this, we're living it, and we will continue to live it, and we're going to continue to figure out a better way to do it, because God's beautiful creation, of which you are in the midst of today, but also we're going to leave here today and be in the midst of more of that as we go into our community, deserves. Let me be clear, I am not saying that there's no other churches in this community that maintain or that prioritize people's needs over maintaining their institution. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm telling you very clearly that Sarasota needs Harvest to keep prioritizing the needs of people over maintaining this institution. And we will continue to. Every time we have a little bit of extra money, which I think happened about 25 years ago, we end up figuring out how to help more people. Every time Harvest House has an influx of money, they start a new program. Hire somebody else that can serve the population of people that are in our care better. Figure out a new way to do. It's always been about how do we improve what we're doing for people. And we will continue to do that. And I really appreciate your help with this. We have 3 more ethics. The middle of October, Jim is going to be doing, instead of the first of the month, Jim's going to be doing Harvest Stories. He'll be contacting 2 people between now and then. He's probably going to do it like at least a week in advance instead of like the day before, like me, or 2 days before. But he'll be reaching out to you guys. But I hope you enjoyed this today. Let's bow our heads together and pray. Father, I thank you today for this word and this gift. You care so much about us. When we read these scriptures, we realize that you are guiding us towards living more complete and whole lives. By not only the way that we take care of one another, but the way that we take care of us. And there are some people in this room that need to learn to give outside of themselves, and there are some people in this room that need to take care of themselves better. And we need to be honest with ourselves of where we're at and what this looks like. And today we commit to keeping at the forefront of every decision we make what is going to help the most people. What is going to let the most people in our community know that God loves them, that they're accepted and received and cared for. And let the idea of maintaining the institution only be about continuing to provide a vessel for which we can do this. It's just simply the shell, but we, the people, are the church. And so today, God, I ask you that you just take this and let us think about it this week and how it affects our everyday life. Help anyone today that is struggling emotionally, dealing with heart and mind stuff, sorting through it. Just let them know in this moment that you love them, that you care about them, that they're important. And whether that's been expressed to them today through this church, where we fall short, we ask that you make up the rest of the difference. And you just let your spirit move upon them. We thank you today in Jesus' name. And everyone says, amen. We'll see you next week. God bless you. We love you.